Are you an aspiring entrepreneur, podcaster, and/or multifamily investor? And you struggle with creating your podcast, with producing your podcast because you don't have a schedule? If you answer yes to that question, this video is just for you, because today we're going to talk about why creating a podcast schedule will save you a lot of time, a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurity. It will literally make you more consistent, not only just with creating your podcast or producing your podcast, but getting more customers, but getting more attention. So let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome to the Phase Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey, and over the last half a decade, I produced over 893 podcast episodes while helping 23 entrepreneurs launch their podcasts with confidence. And the biggest thing that I noticed with other podcasters or people who've been podcasting for a long time is that they have a consistent schedule. And that's what we're going to talk about today: how to develop your schedule for your podcast to have more customers for your business. So let's go ahead and get into it. So point number one that we're going to talk about today is this. First thing first, that you have to plan your podcast out. And what I mean by this is that with Phase Knowledge Podcast, it consists of turning setbacks into success. What does that actually mean, though? We talk a lot about business. We talk a lot about the journey. We talk a lot about growth. We talk a lot about what's working today, what we are trying today, what's not working, and what you can start doing today. And so the reason why that came about, because a lot of podcasters are podcasting, or rather a lot of podcast production companies have the company around podcasting, but if you go and research them, their online presence is like non-existent. And I'm like, how are you going to teach people to do podcasting and you don't even have a podcast yourself? It's kind of like if I go to a car shop and I need something replaced in my car engine, and the mechanic has never worked on the car, but yet he or she is advising me what to change. Like, why are you advising me? Just, you know what I mean? Just do it. What I start to recognize is this: the podcasters who are consistently putting content out there are the ones who's making it different. When you plan your podcast out, you have to develop your mission. Oh man, did it disconnect? Okay, there we go. You have to develop your mission. In other words, hold on. It's supposed to be podcast. Your mission is what creates your focus. Your focus is what creates your outcome. Your outcome is what creates everything that you're looking to build. So what does that mean? That means is that when I started to focus on my mission, my purpose, my goal, the business of podcasting, content creation started to look completely different to me, because now content is marketing myself. Which means is that when people discover me, they discover me talking about podcasting. They discover me educating around podcasting. And when they find me online, I'm talking about the same thing, which is podcasting. Why is that important? That's important because it is. My mission is my focus, but if I don't understand the business of the podcast, I can't really follow the schedule. I can't follow the plan. And what happened is this: I started to shift how I was looking at podcasting. I'm like, all right, cool. Podcasting looks cool. But it's not just cool. It's a way to market yourself. In business terminology, content creation is marketing yourself. Okay, let's get a little bit more technical. You got flyers, right? Let's say this is a flyer. You got flyers. And it has whatever's on there. And then you're on a highway. You got this little board over here. These two are called billboards. And then you got your phone right here. Let's say you got three cameras right there. And this is called social media. So when you're able to meet your customers where they're at, you're not only meeting them where they're at. I don't have billboards right now. I have some flyers. I got some brochures, but I got to update it because my business model has changed so many different times. In addition to that, what I start to recognize is that content is like flyers. Content is like billboards. Content is like radio. Content is like newspapers. When I started to really understand that the information that's online has been like, what is it called? Traditional media or something like that. I think it's called traditional media. Traditiona. Traditional media. And what it means is that it's been marketing. Like, people have been marketing their business for a long time. When I started going to school for integrated public relations, they started to talk about the history of public relations, of marketing. It's a form of marketing of really just people putting themselves out there. And now I'm listening to this book for like the seventh time. It's called There's Always a Customer Born, or there's a new customer every minute. And in this book, it talks about marketing. It talks about content. It talks about putting yourself out there. It talks about speaking engagement. And what I recognized yesterday, I was like, hold on. Excuse me. The plan around podcasting is not just putting yourself out there. It's to stay consistent. It's to stay relevant. It's to stay top of mind. 99% of people who's in your industry, who's in the podcast industry, are not creating content for themselves. And when I'm looking at it, I'm like, how? But then this is what I recognize. When I focus on the plan, when I focus on the mission, I find my competitive advantage. It's an advantage because when you launch your podcast, many people think that you need the equipment. Many people think you need the studio. Many people think you need like the location. But in reality, if you have your phone, you have everything that you need to launch your podcast. Now, of course, the more you podcast and get better with it, you can get the equipment. But what a lot of aspiring podcasters delay at is if they think about starting a podcast. You're worried about, is it going to sound good? You're worried about, is it going to make a difference? You're worried about, is it going to make money? See, the goal to get into business is to make money. Here's the second part of it. The goal in business to make money, yet the problem has to be solved in order for you to make that money. So when I recognized that I had to focus on the problem, I had to develop a plan. In other words, I had to work on a business plan. I had to work on a business model. I had to work on solving a particular problem. And when I start to do that, the podcast look different because now it's not just about content. It's about creating a competitive advantage that will help multifamily investors and entrepreneurs launch their podcasts with confidence. With confidence. You can't have the confidence if you never press record. I did a podcast a couple months ago actually, and it was a guy that was a speaker, and I forgot what the name of the podcast was. Anywho, we was talking, and I was like, for someone that's actually hesitant to start recording content, put themselves out there, I said, what's one piece of advice that you can give him? He was like, man, just do it. He was like, because when you're recording content, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's for the person who's watching your content. The person who's watching your content has to be inspired by what you are speaking about. But if you never hit record, if you never go live, if you never upload the video, upload the podcast, you can't make the difference that you're looking to make. See, many people struggle with competing differently because they don't want to be embarrassed. But I'll tell you this, the only way to grow is to understand that you are not a failure, but you will have to fail multiple different times to learn what you are doing. And so when I start to recognize, I'm like, hold on, something's here. What is here? A lot of people struggle with putting themselves out there. In other words, a lot of people struggle marketing themselves. A lot of people struggle getting more customers. A lot of people struggle building more trust. Because when people see you often, and they are on a phone, this is called, let's say me, and they scrolling on social media, but when they see you often, you become like second nature in their mind. There's been a lot of people that I watch online, and I see them every single day, and I'm like, what makes them different? Why am I constantly seeing them? What makes them different? It's because they have a plan with the content. The content is to help you stay top of mind. So when you start selling a product and or a service, people know what you are standing for. People recognize what you are selling. There's a dude named appreciate you for joining in. There's a dude named Castanet. He's a live streamer and he dropped a journal, right? He dropped a journal. And the journal, pretty cool. But here's the thing. He has millions of followers. He has millions of followers. Why is that important? Because this one product, I don't know how much it costs. Let's just say it's $9.99, okay? And let's say he has 1 million people. And let's say 100 people buy a $9 product, and he just made what, $100 and some change, give or take, however much he charges. I'm not counting his pockets. And what the example is this: millions of people trust him. Trust is not built overnight. Trust is built over time. When you really put yourself out there with your podcast, you are literally building something. But in order for you to build something, you have to put the time in. You have to create a plan. You have to be consistent. You have to do the work. Why am I saying this? Millions of followers trust him. They trust him, they follow him, they support him. Why? Because he stands top of mind. He might not have started selling anything in the beginning of his journey, but over time, when he had his product and those service and he put it out to the world, people are going to buy. Podcasting it generates trust because it builds that relatability, it builds that connection, it builds that influence, it builds that impact. You can't have impact if you're not recording and uploading the video. You can't have impact if you're not going live. You can't have impact if you're not conducting podcasts. Yeah. Why? Because nobody trusts you yet. I want to emphasize yet. Nobody trusts you yet. And that's not bad, but people can start trusting you. Okay, hold on. When you have a plan for your podcast, you are positioning yourself as a business. I gotta take a sip of water to that. When you have a plan for your podcast, you are transitioning into a business owner. Why? Because it's not just about content creation. It's not just about recording videos. It's about providing value in a way that people would trust you because you're helping them go from point A to point B. This is me. This is point A. Point A. This is point B. Hold on. Point B. Okay, it might seem like it's a straight line, but I guarantee there's bumps and roads and crews and doubts and insecurities. But when you have a plan, you will eventually get to where you are trying to go. See, point B is the second phase. Point A is starting. You got to start with what you have in order to start generating an impact. But when you have a plan, you're not winging it no more. When you have a schedule, you can stay up to date. When you follow a blueprint, you're literally following and repeating what's working and removing what's not working. That schedule, that plan would help you stay consistent because you are showing up on a daily basis. Creating is not, it just don't stop at marketing. Creating continues because now you can talk to other people. People are reaching out to get on the podcast. People want to launch their podcast. People want to record. Why are they reaching out? Because I'm the one speaking about podcasting consistently. Okay. Point number two is to actually create a schedule. Like to sit down and create a schedule. The first point that we talked about is that you have to have a plan. plan your podcast out. The next one, when you have a plan and how you going to provide the value, how you going to educate others, the next point that we're going to talk about is to actually sit down and create a schedule. A schedule is what will help you stay consistent. It will help you stay consistent because of this. Hold on. I got to draw my calendar out. It will help you stay consistent because you have days when you're going to record. You have days when you're going to upload. You have days when you're going to literally put your content out. Why? Because in order to stay top of mind, you have to schedule in advance. Scheduling in advance means that you have to have a calendar. I start using my calendar so frequently recently because I had to understand, like, man, what am I doing today? I have this appointment at 10. I got this appointment at 11. Around this time, I'm going to create content. Then I'm going to upload the content for tomorrow. And then when I upload it today, I can go ahead and get the work done, start speaking with customers, start advertising, start doing the different things. The schedule has already been set. Because the schedule is a plan, the schedule is attached to the plan. Why? Because it helps with organizing. It helps with organizing. When I first started podcasting half a decade ago, I would ask people on the podcast. They will say yes. The next question will be, when are you available to do the podcast? Majority of the people be like, man, I don't know. How does Friday at 10 o'clock a.m. sound? And I'm like, okay, that sound good. Then 10 o'clock on Friday comes around, it's like, well, this person didn't necessarily look at the schedule, or I didn't look at the schedule, and I got double booked, whatever the case is. But what happened is that I was unorganized. To be organized in business, I have to operate as a business owner. What this would do for me, one, it gives me a competitive advantage. Two, it positions me differently. Three, it helps me build a routine. The schedule is what matters. People say, show me your calendar and I see what's important to you. And I'm like, I didn't recognize the importance of that. But then when I start to see the importance of that, using a calendar helps me stay organized. Every Friday at 6:30 p.m., my wife and I got date night. Every Monday from 8 to 9, I'm going to create content. And then it's going to be scheduled for Tuesday to be published at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then what happened is that not only the audio goes out, the articles, the social media posts, all these different things are going out. Why? Because I'm organized now. Why? Because I have a schedule now. Why? Because I literally sat down and mapped out my schedule. Shout out to man, one of my mentors. His name just slipped my mind. I literally just saw his name, and Andrew, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked, I was like, man, it seemed like you're pretty organized. I said, how did you get that organized? He said, man, this is what I did. He said, from Sunday, I planned the week out. So Sunday, plan the week. And he was like, many people plan that week during the week, but majority of the people plan that week on Sunday. But when you plan your week on Sunday, you're looking at from Monday all the way up to Saturday, then do it again on Sunday. And I'm like, that made me think about this. It made me think about time management. It made me think about time management. A half a decade ago, hold on, I want to draw the clock right here because I like the clocks. I like the clocks because the time is of the essence. You see, a half a decade ago, I literally remember doing so many different podcasts for like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. But then one day it hit me, I'm like, how am I able to do any work if I'm just sitting down having a 5-hour conversation? Like, how does that help me? A lot of times when I'm doing the discovery call for the podcast, and one of the other questions that I get was, how long is this conversation? And I always say, typically, it's 60 minutes. But if you need for us to go shorter, we definitely can accommodate you. Why? Because I want to respect people's time. Speaking for 60 minutes is phenomenal. You can get a lot of information out of people in 60 minutes. You can literally have a conversation, a phenomenal conversation in 60 minutes. Why does it need to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours? Like, I've watched so many different podcasts and the podcasts be so long. I'm like, bro, what is going on? Why is it that? Like, it's mind blowing. I digress. Scheduling helps me stay and focus on time management. The time that I have comes from me planning it out, having a schedule, and following it to the T. If it's not on the calendar, I don't know if I'm going to do it. But if it is on the calendar, I know I am going to do it because I get reminders, I get notifications, and I'm operating as a business. Whenever I go to appointments and they give my name, they give my information, and they ask what day and time works best for you. Do you like mornings? Do you like afternoons? What day and time works best for you? And I'm like, mornings, let's say around 9 to 12. What time and days do you have available? Let's say, okay, cool, Mr. Humphrey. Do you have June 2nd at 10 o'clock a.m. available? I will look at my calendar. I will say, yes, I have that available. Why? Because I'm operating as a business. Whenever you're doing podcasting, it's not just creating content. You are an operator. You are doing business. You are conducting business. And this is what's going to make you different. Why? Because there's over 4.5. Hold on. Let me write this down. There's over 4.5 million. I'm talking about million with the M podcasters out there. Podcasters. Hold on. Podcasters. 4.5 million podcasters. Everyone has the same format. But I tell you this, majority of the podcasters that's podcasting don't understand business. So if you take the time to understand business and start operating your podcast as a business, you become the operator that's functioning as a business, not as a hobby, but as a business. And that's when everything changed for me, because to have a schedule, I'm literally like following to the T. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm looking at the time now. I've been live for 21 minutes and almost 22 minutes. And now that I'm seeing that, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm operating as a business. See, podcasting is not just creating content. Podcasting is a way to build trust. And as I'm building trust, eventually I will start getting customers. And so I got two set of customers. I actually learned this from the VMT program. It's called the Venture Mentor. I forgot what the T stand for. So VMT. So essentially, you got two customers, right? You got free customers and you got paid customers. Right? You got free customers, you got paid customers. So what does that mean? That means everyone will not pay. Like business, everyone's not going to pay. But that does mean some people can't pay. There's some people are customers. They believe in your product, they believe in your service, they believe in the value that you can bring. But just because everyone is not your customer doesn't mean you can create content for everyone to watch. There's a difference between creating content. So overall, like the broad audience are entrepreneurs. But then when I niche down to go to the paid customers, I'm going to multifamily investors. Why? Because those are the customers I want to serve. Whereas with entrepreneurship, my content is broad because I'm talking about podcasting or my business and podcasting, and I'm referring that to the lessons I'm learning in business, from like content creation to marketing to sales to communication. Like that's what I'm doing. That's the audience that we are focused on, because now it's not just about entrepreneurship. It's about connecting with a bigger audience. So then when I narrow down, this is called niche, or AKA focus. And this is called broader connection. Okay. What does that mean? That means this. Okay. There's a lot of people out there. There's over 8 billion people in this world. I can't connect with everybody. However, I can connect with the entrepreneurs who's doing the same exact thing that I'm doing and pursue like building a community around it. Okay, that's the free. That's the free, right? Every entrepreneur that I want to be around, I want to go where they're at. My audience, my ideal customers who's going to pay me are completely different. Why? Because it's specifically target to this demographic, to this location, to this area. And so when I start to really recognize free versus paid, I'm like, okay, how can my schedule start working with paid customers just as much as free customers? So if I'm balancing the two, I'm like, okay, I'm positioning myself different. Having a competitive advantage in podcasting is what makes you stand out. Having the same podcast structure as everyone else is something that will help you blend in. And so if you want to stand out with your podcast, find a way to stand out. With failures knowledge, we talk a lot about vulnerability, and when people kept saying that, I'm like, why y'all keep saying that? Like, I'm literally focused on turning setbacks into success, like your journey, the things that you've been through, things that you overcame. How did you learn about business? Why did you learn about business? All these different things. So when people kept saying it, I'm like, oh, I think I found something. Because people are not going to talk about their failures openly. They will talk about their success. But what about the moments when you was insecure? What about the moments you second guess yourself? What about the moments you thought it was going to work, but then as you continue to do it, it did not work in your favor, so now you had to pivot? What about the moments that you had doubt is this going to work? That's a sense of vulnerability. Okay, that's a sense of being different. My competitive advantage is helping people share their story comfortably. And that's what made me different, because now I start to understand that there's something here. There is something here. So the last point we're going to talk about is this. Schedule is that you have to do it. You have to follow it daily. Follow it to the T. Like, you got to live by your calendar. You got to live by your schedule, because the moment that you fall off with your podcast, the moment someone else is coming to get your spot in podcasting, it's not a competition, but everyone is competing for attention. And when I heard this a while ago, I didn't understand it, but today I understand it. That was like, attention is the highest currency. And when you have someone's attention, you can communicate them, you can see them in a different place, whatever. I'm like, but what does that actually mean? Attention does not have a price today. Attention builds trust. Attention builds connection. Attention builds relatability. Why? Because they're paying attention to you, hoping that they connect with you. Who is they? Your customers. Who is they? Your audience. Who is they? People who are listening to you. And so then I start watching a lot of music, people in music and entertainment. I'm like, why are they so like known? It's not the fact that they are doing the content. It's more so they understand the problem that they are solving. Entertainment still has a business behind it. I watched the interview with Pharrell. It was old, like a couple years old. And he was like, people understand like the creative, like how to make music, how to make beats, how to create the art. But a lot of artists don't understand the business. It was like, it's business entertainment instead of just entertainment. Why? Because the business funds the entertainment. So when you follow your schedule as planned, like you gotta live by your schedule. You gotta live by your schedule. Because when you live by your schedule, you are literally organized. You are literally consistent. You are literally structured. Why? Because you're following it to the T. Today at this time, I got this activity. Let's say today at 8, I'm gonna go live for 30 minutes. And I'm not gonna go over 30 minutes. If I go over 30 minutes, it'll probably be a couple minutes. Okay, after 8:30, I got a meeting at 10. So, okay, right after I get done, I'm gonna go ahead and pack my stuff, go ahead and get ready and leave. So I'm gonna be early. So I'm following it to the T. Then when I get back from the meeting, I'm going to actually run Facebook ads and have a schedule for tomorrow. So that way people can start getting onto the webinar, can start helping paid customers, helping multifamily investors launch their podcast with confidence. So then when I do that, I'm going to actually upload the content for tomorrow. So that way this episode can be released tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In addition to 20 to 30 posts around this topic. You see, that's going to help me stay organized. So then as I'm speaking with customers or speaking with my ideal customers, I'm literally following my schedule because I'm living to the T. If I want to have a business, I have to run my podcast as a business. I remember working at Walmart. And when I worked at Walmart, let's just say I went in at 4 o'clock a.m. Then I got off at 1 o'clock p.m. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. 9 hours. But it's 8 hours. So I didn't work 9 hours. Let's say I got off at 12. 12 p.m. 12 p.m. Okay. From 4 to 12, I know what I'm doing. From 4 to, let's say, to 6. From 4 to 6, go out, put because I worked in produce, go out and make sure the floor is clean. And then take the old fruit or vegetables and replace it with new fruit and vegetables. So we do that from 4 to 6 before people start coming in. From 7 to 10, we make sure the back is clean and organized. And then go take the old fruit to the back. So there's a system that we was following. So if you're going to have your own business and have your own podcast, why not have a schedule that you can follow just like any other business? That was the differentiator. I'm like, ooh, that's the difference maker. It's the difference maker because people are unorganized. What I say earlier, competitive advantage. Hold on. Competitive advantage is that we are organized. So if you'll be a podcaster, a business owner, multifamily investor, you have to be organized with not only just your deals, not only just your customers, but with your content. You have to be organized with everything, and you only do that when you have a schedule around your podcast. So just to recap everything that we talked about today, point number 1 is that you have to plan your podcast out. When you plan your podcast, plan it as a business instead of a hobby. Point number 2 that we talked about was that you have to create a schedule. Any business has a schedule, and when you have a schedule for your podcast, follow it to the T because this is where you're able to grow and make a difference. Last point that we talked about is that you have to follow it to the T actually because you have to live by your schedule. When you live by your schedule, you make a difference because now you are operating as a business. So if you're a multifamily investor and who struggle with launching, editing, and producing your podcast, shoot us an email. We would love to help you not only launch your podcast with confidence, but make sure that you show up consistently so your business can grow as well. Lastly, don't be afraid to fail because failure is knowledge.